It's just about 5 minutes gone past the hour of 9 o'clock in the morning time. Good morning again to you, Grenada, Carrick, Cupidi, Martinique, the rest of the Eastern Caribbean, to those of you wherever you are, here at home, across the region, and other parts of the diaspora. We say thank you and welcome to The Point for this, the 22nd day of the month of December, folks. Who would have possibly imagined that we'd have been pronouncing this date, and with such confidence and vigor and zest that we've made it thus far. I'm Joseph Cadore, and I say thanks for being part of the broadcast. And those of you that's following us via radio, television, or possibly via the World Wide Web at www.gbn.jd or via our Facebook page or YouTube channel, I say to you, welcome to the program. My guest this morning, Health Minister Nikolas Steele, and I think I can probably safely say this might probably be our final engagement with him for the year. But certainly, good morning, Minister Steele. How are you?
Good morning, and season greetings to you and to all of your viewers and listeners. It's a wonderful time of year, so it's a pleasure to be with you.
I'm looking at you and I see you smiling, and I know just about a couple months ago, 2-3 months ago, we were in a state of apprehension. While most of us, we were thinking December, Christmas. We were asking ourselves, boy, we going to get to December, but probably wondering what kind of Christmas would it be. You seem a little bit more relaxed these days, though, and I must see for all good reasons.
December is here.
Yes.
Christmas is upon us, and we are going to celebrate Christmas one way or the other. That's up to us. We have COVID-19 still around. We do have the Omicron variant that is a significant threat, and we're hearing from friends and family in the UK and in the US that it is beginning to, and watching the news, that it's curtailing, it's spoiling their Christmas. It can do the same thing here, but we just need to take a couple precautions, and we can still enjoy our ham, our wine, our fruitcake, etc.
Friends and family.
With friends and family. But let's get tested and boosted or vaccinated. If we can do that, but right now, for those of us who are not vaccinated, and I think everybody, vaccinated or not vaccinated, get tested. Let's make sure before we go spend time with family that the only thing we bring to the house is the ham, the fruitcake, and the wine. And
the love and the cheer. Let us start let me start the conversation. My heart got a little bit of a scare this morning before the last 2 weeks of, I was happy to declare to the nation every morning that we were at 0 cases. And then I woke up this morning and I saw 12. And 12, while 12 is a minimal number in the context of its value, it seems like a whole lot. Bring us up to speed, Minister, as to exactly where we are.
It is of concern, and we should not ignore the fact that the 12 is a significant amount, and tomorrow 12 could turn to 24 to 48. This is Omicron variant that is around, and we have to be cautious. We've been down this road before. We know how quickly this can increase. So that's why we can't be going with these lockdowns and shutdowns, etc. This is where we are. We have to live with it. And I truly believe if we all get tested, I'm going to get tested today again, just to be sure. I am fully vaccinated. I have not been throwing caution to the wind, but I'm going to go get tested so that when I go visit friends and family, the only thing I'm bringing is a Christmas cheer and the spread of good spirits.
Let us talk about, of course, the Omicron has become the topic of conversation. Prior to that, we had Delta. And here we are, we've seen in the U.S., we're hearing that it is 73% of cases now in the U.S., it is the Omicron variant. In the U.K., there's conversation, let's go to another shot. Only this morning, we're hearing in Israel that they're approving a 4th shot to address it. All of these things happening, and we've seen all of these measures taken that's happening in the UK, not in Europe as a whole, sorry. Give me a sense of appreciation, because we know we've had our own battles here, and government, of course, will be taking a proactive approach to it. What can we say to the people, the nation at this time, as to government's plans as we look towards the holidays and look towards the new year?
I think we have more vaccines available now than we ever have in terms of quantity on island. Pfizer, AstraZeneca, We have Johnson and Johnson as well. So it's available to the population. I encourage, I implore. We've said enough on that. That you know and the population knows how I feel and how the government feels with respect to taking the vaccine. Take the vaccine, please. Take the first dose, take the second dose. And those of you who have taken a second dose about 3 months ago or so, please come forward and take a booster. It works. It's showing everywhere else in the world that it's working. It will work here too. It will keep us safe. It showed in the wave we had in end of August into September. Look at the hospitalizations and look at the deaths. Majority, 90%, 95% or higher were unvaccinated persons. So this works. In the interim, though, we recognize that there are certain people that are hesitant. They are still our brothers and sisters. They are still our fellow Grenadians. So I beg you, at least get tested. Get tested this week before the weekend.
There was a story that was out earlier this week, regarding Johnson & Johnson, and I think there was a recommendation to the CDC as to whether or not the Johnson & Johnson shot had enough efficacy to address the concerns being posed by the new variant. With that being said, and having the fact that you just mentioned Johnson & Johnson as one of the options that was added to our arsenal in terms of vaccines recently, persons may probably have apprehension, and you just mentioned it as one of the available options.
My position simply, and our position simply, is that what the CDC releases based on Johnson & Johnson's efficacy to a specific variant, and that's the CDC based on their research. There are other variants. Delta is still in circulation here in Grenada and worldwide. Yes, one may want to consider taking Pfizer or AstraZeneca instead. But one also needs to consider that they said if efficacy and not failure, that it does work. It does work against Omicron, as it does work to protect you against any of the variants. Just not as good as the others, but you need as much protection as possible, as quickly as possible. So someone may opt, based on the industry that they're in also, or the timing here, to say, look, let me take the Johnson & Johnson. It's one dose and I'm fully protected. I can go back to work. I can regain some level of normalcy or so. So that's why it's still available. And there may be other variants that Johnson & Johnson will work just as well as it has with Delta. So we follow all of these bits and pieces of information, but you got to look at the long term.
I recently had a conversation with, actually 2 or 3 weeks ago, I interviewed a team from the Windrift, and it was a report that was released, and regarding highlighting the hesitancy among Grenadians, and among their findings certainly was the concerns of misinformation, mistrust, and those different elements. But there is the growing concern, and not just here at home, and I'm assuming not just here at home, but across different parts of the world, that you keep hearing, listen, we're taking it, but yet there is still that uncertainty. Because even today, I read a report from the WHO where one of the experts is saying, you know what, we're still not certain. This new variant, what we can do to it. So yes, why are we hearing take the vaccine? How does government in our own neck of the woods plan to address not what is misinformation, but that growing cloud of concern, even from the experts, and that placed upon that natural hesitancy that we have? It puts the ministry in a sort of an ambiguous position.
Well, it does in terms of the individuals who are trying to spread misinformation. They don't go through the checks and balances as the proper scientists that will come and say, look, we don't know as yet, but we feel that it is looking this way or so. Whereas the gloom and doom misinformation spreader is just going to say, this is the case, without any facts or factual information. So the proper scientist is going to say, we are monitoring. It does look like It's not as deadly if you're talking about Omicron, but we continue to monitor. And they will also add that it is extremely more contagious. So while maybe only half as many people will get seriously ill, 3 times as many people will get infected. So you still might get your health system being inundated, as we're seeing happening in other countries. And that is what's happening in the UK, and we're seeing it happening in certain states in the US. We need to be prepared that quite likely will happen with us as well here in Grenada. So we need to approach this with eyes wide open, not looking for a message that we like and then follow it, but listening to all of the information, the correct information, and making proper decisions based on that.
Making proper decisions, certainly. That's what I know a lot of persons, they would want to hear as you go into we're looking forward though, because the plan was for the new year, school opens in full. We go back to that that there was an expectation, and there are those who did query the lockdown, and we came, for me in particular, quite a bit of surprise that on the heels of the holiday season, where there's this natural tendency to mix and mingle, and I know it was probably, I know the intentions, but some are asking, given where we are and the state of uncertainty, what can you say to us, Minister, as it relates to as we head into the holiday seasons? Is it going to remain, life will remain as it is? We remain open, or should Grenadians be concerned that maybe with the uncertainty there is something in the mix that we need to know?
Well, look, I certainly hope that we continue to remain open throughout the holiday season and afterwards. What the Ministry of Health does is we monitor. When we're sharing the information that we're monitoring, you yourself expressed concern that there were 12 cases found yesterday. We will monitor, and based on the increase in cases or hospitalization in particular, that is going to dictate any actions or so. And that's the same anywhere in the world. You're looking at your number of cases, your threat exists, but you have to put faith in the people that they are going to get vaccinated, and those who are not are going to get tested or take the necessary precautions. Using restrictive measures also as a preventative measure works depending on where the risk is, but I believe right now in this festive season, that's not the approach we should take. We need to live, we need to celebrate, we need to spend time with each other. If in doing so, many of us do not follow protocols and we end up with a surge or so, then we will deal with that as a people. But I do not think we should take the approach of restricting us all, because there are many of us that are going to be able to celebrate Christmas, spend time with friends and family, following the protocols, getting tested before we go to the fete or to Christmas lunch or so, to know our status. And why should all of us be denied because some of us? But we will have to deal with the consequences afterwards. But I do believe that is a more appropriate approach than restricting us all. We have to learn to live with COVID.
The 12 cases, the 12 new cases that we've had, I guess the question that is probably foremost on the lips of everyone, have we been able to confirm the type? What is it? Is it a Delta, Omicron? What is it really?
We will know in the next couple of days to a week the type that we are trying to identify. What I would say is, from a Ministry of Health standpoint, and for all of us, we should always assume the worst case.
Right.
So let us assume that those cases are Omicron, and therefore let us act accordingly, which is why we are saying, let's get tested. If it is Omicron, then it's out there. Then we're dealing with a whole different type of COVID-19. And what is necessary is test. Test today, on the weekend, test next week.
We've had our challenges, Minister, with Delta. We saw it. Mm-hmm. We seem as it was relatively safe until Delta came. The Omicron variant is said to be has a higher transmissibility factor than the Delta. And I know while government would be would hold his cards to his chest, what sort of assurance can you give to the general public that, as you said, as we plan for the worst, certainly, have we started putting our checks and balances? Are we ready to roll out an effective plan to address those challenges if the need be that it is determined that it is the new variant?
Well, I don't think we're holding our cards to our chest. I mean, the actions are obvious. I mean, we monitor, we take the necessary precautions as a people. If we are vaccinated, we are much better off. So we continue to make the vaccines available. As I said, we have more vaccines available than we've ever had before. Quantity as well as variety. Number of tests, test sites, etc. too. We have private sector involved in testing. We're testing. So all of the tools and mechanisms are there. Our health system has never been stronger than it is right now. Tried and tested with the previous wave. They're battle weary. And my team do need to exhale and take a breather as well.
Right.
And fortunately, so far they are able to, but unfortunately with Omicron right around the corner, it may not be that length of time before they are called back out to give all hands on deck. That seems to be the obvious way that we will be moving forward until we have a population, not just in Grenada, but throughout the world, fully vaccinated so we can get rid of this disease.
24 minutes gone past the hour in the morning time. We have a caller on the line. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Joseph.
Yes, you're live.
Good morning, Minister. I have taken my first 2 shots, and I need to take the third one, which is a booster. But because of my physical condition, it's sort of difficult for me to get it, to go out and get it. I tried the first 2 times, but it's kind of difficult now. So can you advise me as to how I can get my third shot?
You're saying, did she say because of condition or because of occupation or in other words?
Because of her condition, she's not able to. It renders a challenge.
Yeah.
Okay. I would suggest that the caller get in touch with us directly, get in touch with her community nurse, her doctor, or the Ministry of Health, so that we can make arrangements.
Yes, because of course you would appreciate, and of course you could share with the public, Minister, that the vaccines are available at all of the health centers across the state.
Yes. So please get in touch with her nearest community health center, a doctor that she interacts with, or the Ministry of Health directly, so that we can make the arrangements for her to get the vaccine.
435-2041, that's the number on the inside to the point for today, Wednesday. We go to the telephone lines. Classic, good morning, you're live.
Hi, good morning. Can we find out if the cases are imported or local cases, please?
Minister, question to you. Were you able to determine whether or not they're imported or local cases?
Yesterday, 3 are local and the other 9 are imported or import related.
Now, for the purpose of getting the public to understand and appreciate that 3 is local, and when we say import related,
individuals that showed up at one of our health centers or hospitals and were tested because they were presenting with symptoms, etc. And the others were a combination of individuals who recently had someone visit them from away, staying in the house, or individuals who were here for a couple of weeks and are now going to test to leave, or a week or so, and now testing to have that test to go back to their country, testing positive. So we have that combination of what you would call travel related as well as local, which is what we would expect because we do have COVID-19 in circulation in our community, and the same way you have it in circulation worldwide. Our testing on arrival now is to identify the possibility of variants. but we already have Delta variant here is to see and to know and to lock down Omicron if and when it shows up.
But some persons may ask, and given that we've enjoyed the last 2 weeks, I think in most parts, the last 2 weeks in particular, where we've had no cases at all, we're getting closer to the holiday season. We're getting the presence of the virus in the U.S. and its dominance. Should we be wary as it relates to government's policy for entry into the country? Now that we're seemingly out of nowhere, we've had the jump 3 local and 9 of that is travel related.
I don't believe so, because the travel-related persons are coming to test. Not many locals are coming to test. Every travel-related person, when they're leaving, comes to test. How often? That's why I'm saying for us locals, let's get tested. How often have you been tested? You will only come forward to get tested if you think you've been exposed to someone or if you're not feeling well. But we do know that if, as a vaccinated person, it is possible to have COVID-19 and not experience any symptoms. But you can be contagious. So that's why we're asking people to be tested. And in order for us to live with COVID and move forward from COVID, all of the negative effects that COVID has had, we cannot continue to look at it's something outside and let's just close our borders or restrict people coming in and we just don't follow the protocols here and we'll be okay, because that's not going to get us out of the woods. We need to follow the protocols. If we follow the protocols, if we all get vaccinated, and I hope it's still possible that the majority of us will come forward and get vaccinated. But if not, let's get tested and let's follow the various protocols, and we can take control of this and stop implying that our mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers and cousins and so should not come home and should not be allowed to go visit. It's not that. It's here. It spreads among us based on our habits here, and we just need to deal with that so that we can get back to normal.
29 minutes gone past the hour in the morning time. To the point, my guest, Health Minister Nikolas Steele. We'll take a quick commercial break, Grenada.
Let's get tough on greed, yeah, larceny. It will destroy our economy. Larceny threatens our food security. Can hurt us locally, hurt us globally. To all the buyers, ask for license from all produce sellers. To all people, 300 for police for them thieving fellas. To all the families, don't steal produce from your brother. Then you sell it to traffickers, hotels and street vendors. Nah, man. Let's do all we can to stop radio larceny. New vigilance, new laws, and a tough judiciary. Stop Grenada's organized business crime. It's time.
To report radio larceny, call 300.
Thank you. Welcome back to 29 minutes on to the hour of 10 o'clock. My guest this morning is Health Minister Nikolas Steele, and the conversation touches and surrounded that of, as you can well imagine, we're finding out that we have 12 new active cases after what's been a quiet period, and Minister Steele and I will be having that conversation. Reminding you that you too, you can be part of the conversation. You can call into the studio, or you can have your engagement via the social media platform. We have a caller that is on the line. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Mr. Cadore and Minister Steele. I just have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
For Minister.
I'm not hearing the caller.
Hello? Are you hearing me better now? Hello?
Are you hearing our minister?
Hello?
No.
Hello? Oh my God.
Yes, caller.
Hello? Hello?
Go ahead, caller. Go ahead.
Yes, I have a question for Minister Steele. I just want to know if for visitors arriving on the island, if the PCR test is still part of the protocol.
I'm assuming you'll relate to me because I'm not hearing.
So she's asking whether or not the PCR test upon arrival, whether or not it is still part of the protocol that's been engaged by the ministry for persons entering the country.
We had stopped the PCR test, and PCR test starts back from tomorrow on arrival for all persons coming in. Yes.
No, well, why I asked, Joe, maybe you can tell Minister for me, because I know 2 persons who arrived recently, and they paid, they had to pay online for this test, and they arrived and didn't get it. So is the money going to be refunded? Because it's, I think, about $70.
Minister, she's saying the query comes on the backdrop of 2 persons who recently entered the country. They paid for the service, the PCR services online, and upon entry, it was not provided. What would be the protocol regarding that? Whether or not they would be refunded, or exactly how would that be handled? Thank you, caller.
The payment issue is with the Ministry of Finance, and I know it is possible to get refunded. It is not a straightforward process, I'll be honest and admit, but yes, it is possible to get refunded, and it is also possible to have that transferable. So in other words, if the person is visiting, they can use it for their test to exit, or transfer it to someone else, yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, caller.
Happy Christmas to both of you.
All the best to you. But Minister, let me just expand on why do you think, though, if it's the case that, let's establish a protocol for me. If it is, of course, it's going to be reinstated, why then? Is it a lapse in communication somewhere along the channel?
No, the reinstating is based on our observation that we found and we saw happening in other neighboring countries. In Trinidad in particular, that some of the airlines were allowing persons on without the proper PCR test. And in some cases, as happened in Trinidad, and we got one case here, of an individual being allowed with a positive PCR test to board the flight and come to Grenada. So having learned that over the last couple of days, we have decided we need to seek our own interest, and we need to reinstate that test on arrival, because we need to confirm the person's status, and we cannot take for granted the test that they took wherever, and also the airline or the person at the check-in counter to verify. So that's why the test has been reinstated, because of finding blatant examples of persons not doing their proper due diligence with respect to the test.
We 25 minutes onto the hour. We continue to we say thanks to those of you that's on social media that we certainly are following your contributions there. Feel free, you can post your contribution via our Facebook page or even via our WhatsApp. The WhatsApp number being the same as the direct line, which is 435-2041. I'm seeing. Let me see. So, Minister, let's looking ahead. So we've highlighted the fact that where we are, and you did say that our frontline workers, they are battle weary. And yes, and I think we all are. I was saying to my internal bosses,
COVID tired.
I'm tired. And even me, I say to them, I'm tired. I mean, I am really, 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 really tired, mentally and physically. What has been done? What can you say in terms of efforts from the government to get our frontline workers mentally realigned? As we look possibly, we've often said, not if, but when we get a second wave. And God forbid it comes, but we know at some point the likelihood does exist. Mentally, are we prepared? Yes, we have the vaccines, our facilities, yes, but are we prepared mentally to deal with this?
We have been providing counseling services. We've had visiting counselors, and I have more coming in early in the new year, as well as virtual. It's recognition of the work and service that our frontline workers have been provided. So that follows along the lines of us making those contingencies in the budget financially, but it goes beyond, because many of our frontline workers are not doing it for the money. They're doing it for the love of the profession, of caring, etc. So it is in the recognition as well, but also to make sure that in the quiet periods, or relatively quiet periods, because they're still working,
right,
relatively quiet periods, they're able to get that emotional and psychological support as well, and recognition. And it's not just from me or from you, it has to be from all of us to recognize the human service that your healthcare and frontline worker has provided.
We have a caller on the line. Good morning, caller. You alive?
Hi, good morning, Joe.
Yes,
and,
go ahead.
Greetings to you and your followers, and likewise to the minister. I'm just joining in, so I may have lost some things, but I've heard the minister encouraging everyone to go and get tested. My question, first of all, is, are the tests...
Again, I'm not hearing anything, so...
Are you not hearing me? Joe?
Yes, caller, go ahead.
Yes, he says that the minister is saying that he's not hearing anything.
For the challenge, I would relate it to him.
Right, the first question is, are those tests free to the general public so that anyone can just go and get tested? Secondly, I am disappointed at the nonchalant way in which the minister seems to be treating with this new spike we have had. We have had over the last 3 weeks or probably months very few cases at all. And suddenly to report 12 cases. I mean, the minister did not even go to explain what are the sources of those cases. It is a caller who had to ask. But you know, where these cases...
Whatever you touched during the commercial break, it stopped during the commercial break. Halfway through, after the first ad.
Yeah. Can I proceed now, Joe?
So, caller, let me speak with the minister, because I see them we may be having some challenge, because whatever is it that happened. But I've got you to I'll raise your concerns to the minister. Just hold for me, Minister. The caller is raising, in his estimation, he's of the impression that you're treating the new cases rather callously, and he seems concerned. And what he says is your nonchalant approach to it. This is the fact that we have these 12 new cases.
No, well, look, I appreciate the caller recognizing that it's still a serious issue. Okay, what I recognize is that we have consistently come on the air, I have, to the public to speak about the seriousness of COVID-19. I've spoken about the fact that it's deadly. I've spoken about the fact that people will die. I've spoken about the fact that it will continue to affect us and our loved ones, etc. I, for one, you can attest, almost every member of the public in Grenada, that I recognize the seriousness of COVID-19. What I do recognize as well, though, is that that's what we have been saying to the public from day one. And it has not necessarily worked. So I do believe that caller doesn't need me to tell them that this is a serious issue. That caller is following the daily figures and does recognize that 12, jump from 0 to 12 is a serious issue. And I believe that caller will take the necessary steps. I am trying to reach the others who have not been listening to us, who are going to celebrate regardless, and to try to tell them, okay, I recognize that you are being nonchalant about this. I'm just asking you to test. I'm just asking you to make sure that you don't bring COVID home. I'm not going to engage in a conversation with you right now on the eve, just before Christmas Eve, or the day before the eve of Christmas Eve and Christmas spirit, until you get vaccinated. Because you're going to find all sorts of excuses for me about not getting vaccinated. I do hope that you will get vaccinated, those of you who are not, and maybe you'll get vaccinated immediately after the festive season, if not before. Because you'll probably tell me you don't want the side effects during Christmas when you have to fet and party. I understand that, but I truly think you should take the vaccine. I truly think you should recognize that 12 cases are a serious issue. That 12 tomorrow could be 24, literally tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that, we could be dealing with 100 in 4 or 5 days based on Omicron. These are the facts. Those of us who are aware of the disease and the seriousness, like that caller, I think, are going to be making those observations and taking the necessary steps. I am trying to reach the others who have not been paying attention to that. Those that I meet every Saturday coming to get tested at the sites that we have for vaccination, but still will not get vaccinated.
So, taking this conversation in this bigger picture, the call to vaccinate, and there are those who've made the argument, and it is an objective argument, that if it's happening in Israel, where there's 90+%, there's Gibraltar, where there's almost close to 100%, the bigger countries where there is, there's been less hesitancy and increase in cases, you're asking now for a fourth shot. Let's assume, what is the plan locally in terms of getting individuals, one, because there's a hesitancy, so it means, and coming from the same Windruff report, there was questions maybe about the methodology, how it's being communicated to individuals. Has government addressed those concerns? Because yes, while we're saying get vaccinated, it's evident and apparent that the methodology, whatever it is not working. Has then been a shift in the plan by government as to how we communicate with the general public on the need for vaccine? And how do we get, if people do decide, how do we get up to speed, therefore, on a fourth shot and a booster when most individuals have not taken the first?
Right. That is our challenge, yes. That is a challenge that I have. That is a challenge that many other Caribbean ministries of health and leaders have. To address. Now, what I would ask individuals to check for themselves, don't take my word for it. You're hearing about Israel recommending a fourth dose, but have you heard about hospitalizations or deaths in Israel? The Israelis are focusing on trying to root out COVID-19 completely, 0 cases. That's why they are recommending an additional dose for their citizens. But have you heard anything in the news of the hospitalizations or deaths in Israel? Probably not, because there aren't. That's significant. You are hearing of hospitalizations and deaths in countries where they still have not achieved a high enough level of vaccination. And that is where COVID-19 is still a significant threat. Like Grenada, we continue to have a significant threat. We can have that conversation about those of us who have taken the first dose, second dose, and third dose, to contemplate taking a fourth dose so that we can have 0 COVID-19 in Grenada. But we also need to have, rightfully so, the conversation about those who need to take their first and second doses so that we can have 0 deaths and hospitalizations. And I think we need to make that separation, and we all, media, those of us in society, who have come forward and taken the vaccine, need to speak to our peers and loved ones, neighbors, friends, to make that separation and say, don't just focus on there's another vaccine to be taken or a booster. Who's dying? And where are they dying? They're dying in countries that don't have the level of vaccination. They don't have high death rates in Israel and hospitalizations in Israel. The Israelis are just focusing on reducing to almost 0, if possible, the number of COVID-19 cases. So let us not confuse number of COVID-19 cases with hospitalizations and deaths.
15 minutes on to the hour, we have a caller online. Good morning, caller. You're live.
Hello, good morning.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Steele, and good morning to you.
Now I can hear you.
I want to find out something. What about concerning the curfew? Because I know right now is an open sepulchre. And that part, I find that part smelling and heading in a dangerous trend. So with the curfew part, I think the curfew should have stayed around for 12, but they left the curfew. But then I know, personally, it will be devastating because Grenadians, they do a lot of wrong things. They're not hearing to anything. So that curfew, I think something should really be done about that curfew for around this festival.
Okay, cool.
That's the contribution.
Yeah. What I would say to the caller is that we had curfew in August, huh? We had curfew in August. Let us stop thinking that curfew and restrictions are going to prevent COVID-19. Vaccination and testing is how we will get control of this. Putting curfews and restricting all of us because some of us are misbehaving, some of us are still going to misbehave. We're very much aware that during the curfew period, people were renting houses and having house parties. We couldn't find them, but they were going into lockdown, so to speak, before curfew and then coming out when curfew was finished. So people will still find ways to breach and break. And a population, we need to not have the police telling us how to keep ourselves healthy.
We have a caller.
I think can only be contemplated now if it is that the hospitals are full. But before that, it has to be personal responsibility.
Good morning, caller. You're live.
Yes, Mr. Cadore, good morning and greetings to your guest.
Good morning. Go ahead, please.
Now, your penultimate caller asked one question and expressed a concern. The question was, are these tests that your guests speak about free? His concern was, why hasn't the source of the 12 cases been divulged? I seek answers to these questions also. And additionally, I pose the following. If there is no need for curfew and no need for such vigilance, my question is, why does the government insist on holding this country hostage under a state of emergency? Thank you very much and have a nice day. Will ya?
Thank you very much, Colin.
Nice to see that Mr. Marolo is in a festive mood, and I'm glad to interact with him for the season. Season greetings to you, Citizen Marolo. With respect to the source of the yesterday's positive 12 cases, yes, that information will become public. I did say and give a basic breakdown of travel-related, import-related, and local of those, and further information will be made available. With respect to the need for the state of emergency, while we're still saying right now there's no need for curfew or any of the other restrictions, I have addressed that before, but will address it again because I think it's a relevant question that individuals are asking. It's the same as having a fire engine. Do you only go and purchase a fire engine and make sure it's working when there's a fire? Or do you make sure that the ability to react is there, but just leave it? You're not going to have that fire engine driving around and wetting everybody's house when there's no fire. But you do want to know that the mechanisms for curfew, for restriction of movement in a pandemic where movement causes the spread, is there. Not to be used all the time, but to be there to be used regrettably if you have to.
Another caller on the line. Good morning, caller. You're live.
Yes, good morning.
Go ahead, please.
Yes, Minister Steele, I wish you would really speak to us as though we are human beings. You all lift the curfew, you lift the restrictions, you know COVID is rampant, and then all you want to blame us for everything. So hell with it. Is either all you get out of office and let somebody come in who could rule the nation and save us, or save us, please. Enough is enough.
Well, I do hope that caller can embrace this season of festivity and peace and joy and love. Obviously, that caller has a lot more on their chest than just the topic that we are discussing. But am I to gather that the caller is criticizing us for the lifting of the curfew and allowing us to enjoy a little more freedoms in Grenada?
Well, what I'll say to you is, Minister, it doesn't matter. We'll always, if you ask me personally, the curfew,
damned if you do, damned if you don't.
The curfew could stay in place. I'm fine with it. But of course, I mean, people are. I'm inside since 7 o'clock, so that's fine. That is fine. Let me ask you, though, Mr. Minister, about Carriacou. And I've often wondered, and maybe you can help me to understand, why is it we've treated, in terms of the numbers, Carriacou's had its separate dashboard numbers and releases. And interestingly enough, Mr. Minister, for some reason, and if you can look into it, for the last week, or so, while there have been 0 cases, I have noticed that there's been the timing and the efficiency in which the data and the Ministries of Health, its website, and the information has been updated. Prior to I got that information, it's 8 o'clock the night before. And sometimes I have to wait until a day, 2 days before. I was surprised though last night. I saw it was updated quite early. What's happening, what's not happening? I'm a bit troubled by that.
Well, on 2 issues. The issue with Carriacou, the Ministry of Health does a national dashboard. Carriacou and individuals in Carriacou have taken it upon themselves, and we are grateful for it. I think it does help for the people of Carriacou. They have been releasing their own dashboard as well, just to give the stats for Carriacou. So that's not Ministry of Health, but we share the information with the individuals, and the individuals release information for Carriacou. With respect to the time,
let me make sure I understand, because I'm a bit confused. So the dashboard that comes from, there is a dashboard that says Grenada. Is it that
correct?
Grenada includes the Carriacou figures?
Includes the Carriacou figures, yes. So the Ministry of Health releases the dashboard on the national status.
But that seems almost confusing, though.
Numerous individuals. There's more than one. There are at least 2 or 3 individuals, media personalities as well as others, who are releasing dashboards of their own, taking some of our information and correlating it or presenting it differently or so.
But do you think, Minister? But do you think that adds to the confusion that there is out there?
It can. I'm just clearly stating that the Ministry of Health releases Ministry of Health dashboard.
Right, but
there are other media houses and other personalities and other individuals that are taking the information that we have and presenting it differently or presenting it specifically for Carriacou also. But that is not from the Ministry of Health. We are working with the Ministry of Carriacou and Petite Martinique Affairs, and they have asked for the people of Carriacou and Petite Martinique to release something separate. But it is not through us, but the information is from us.
But is that a position that the ministry, given that this is it's a pandemic, is a national concern, that you have information coming from different sources? Why not be from a central location?
National, and we continue to say this is the information from the Ministry of Health. In the same way that individuals choose to listen to one radio station or another, or go to one website to see the same information, but maybe correlated differently or so. That is the choice of the individual. But our dashboard is released on a daily basis, and it says it has the Ministry of Health emblem, etc., and it is on the Ministry of Health social media pages, etc. The timing of the release of the information, yes, under normal times, it would be released by 9 o'clock at night for the latest as information comes in. Right now, over the last week or 2, we've had some of our staff taking breathers. So the information does come back in a little later. In other words, a calm before the storm. There is a storm. There is an Omicron storm coming. And the same issue that we addressed earlier with respect to our healthcare workers, etc., that is part of the period. Because remember, all of our health centers, it's the same individuals, all of our health centers have to provide that information within a certain time frame to be correlated at the Ministry of Health to then be released. And you're seeing this happening after hours. And that does mean that these individuals are working not 8 to 4. They're working after hours, because individuals will come all the way up to 4 o'clock to get tested or to get the results, etc. And the labs are working till late in the night. So we do have individuals providing yeoman service. And there was a week and a half period where those results would have come out a little later at night, just to adjust, but we are back on to that regular timing of that information so that we can all see it before we go to bed.
I have a caller on the line. Good morning, caller. You're live.
Hello, good morning.
Yes, you're live, caller. Go ahead.
How are you?
I'm wonderful, thank you.
That's nice. Season greetings.
Thank you. Many happy returns to you, sir.
Also to Mr. Steele. But Mr. Steele, with all due respect to you, sir, stop taking Grenadian far right and spinning them at the end of your finger, because this thing is not last yesterday to today. It was there before. So all the time you're coming on the radio and saying that Ali was clear, it was not true. and get it straight. It was not true when it was coming on the radio and say you do testing and it only have no cases. It was not true. Stop.
Let me ask you, sir, before the minister,
You as a responsible
because
journalist, you-
the minister is if he chooses, is going to make his comment. What's your basis of making those assertions, sir?
Because I knew.
When you say you knew, what data you knew? What source do you have as to determine that what the ministry is releasing isn't factual? Caller?
You know that. Thank you. Have a good morning.
But caller, you say you know. You know how?
I knew because I just move around, I just walk around, and I always Mr. Steele does be, I just be there.
Again, I'm not hearing the caller, but maybe it's better.
I just need to take a breather on this one. Okay, Joe, calm yourself. We're gonna go back to the telephone lines. Classic, good morning, you're live.
Mr. Cadore, excuse me, but I beg your indulgences. My first question, or the question presented to the caller when I called and referred to the penultimate, as related to the price or cost of these tests referred to by the minister. Are they free to the public or not? I need answers. That's why we ask questions. Thank you.
Mr. Minister?
Mr. Rollo, my apologies. The tests within the community are free to the individual. An individual who needs an exit test to travel will pay for it. Right now, the test for persons coming in, persons don't pay for it right now, but that's not sustainable. I do think we should expect that by mid-January, in some form or fashion, we may have to ask individuals to pay for these tests as we move forward. It's not a sustainable thing, but we try as best as possible to ensure that when we are doing contact tracing and within our communities for our own Grenadians to take the test because they've simply been going about their lives as normal and somehow would have been infected by somebody who in their communities got COVID-19 or so, individuals don't pay for that test. If you simply want a test because you are traveling on vacation or going back to where you live or so, yes, you pay for that test.
Mr. Minister, it's almost 10 o'clock. We are out of time. But let me just ask you, and that's where we started the conversation as to how concerned should we be, given that there are calls, the WHO, the director was saying, listen, folks, Christmas, limit your movement. Some countries have imposed restrictions. Some countries in Europe, lockdowns, literally lockdowns. However, there seems to be the concern that here we've lifted the curfew. Cruise ship season is into full effect, and there seems to be this sense that listen, life has gone back to normal. Here, all of a sudden, we have 12 cases, and in most circles, I know red alarms are going off. I know you stated that government does not intend for the Ministry of Health in terms of making any immediate changes, but is that something, can we in any way determine that maybe there might be some reconsideration to that, given we've already recognized the culture in Grenada, the nonchalance, the hesitancy? Are we going to wait, if you ask, maybe until it gets worse, or can we anticipate that government is probably going to make a decision, or do we just wait and see?
But look, it's a constant learning process. In August, there was no carnival, but there was carnival. Okay, how far does a government go in order to keep its population healthy if a significant number of individuals do not want to heed the warnings? Whether you legislate the warnings or not, there's only so much we can do to beg people to try and keep themselves safe. Because when we made gatherings, when gatherings were only supposed to be of a certain size, people were going out of their way to find a bus or to find a beach or to find a private house or to find somewhere to gather and cause the same risk and possible spread as we saw as it happened. So it's obvious that those methods, while it gives some of us a sense of security, it does not accomplish ultimately what we would like it to, which is to prevent the spread. We have to be realistic. We also have to recognize that we have paid a significant price economically, psychosocially, psychologically over the past period, and we are all COVID wary. But none of us can say that we're not aware of how COVID-19 spreads and what the risks are with respect to COVID-19. And I just think that we now need to rely on personal responsibility. The government will have to take the actions that people are questioning or concerned about or expecting, will have to, but not to prevent the spread of COVID-19. COVID-19 is among us. We will have to take those actions to prevent the inundation of our health system. But we do believe that our population should by now be responsible enough to recognize. It's not going to stop the odd outbreak. It's not going to stop the 12 or the 24 or the 50. But why should we keep 110,000 people restricted for the 10 or 15 or 20? We have to look at it from the numbers that way. Why should all of us be restricted from Christmas when so many of us are taking the necessary precautions? Because some of us are not. The some of us who are not will pay a price, regrettably, will be the cause of an outbreak. But we cannot use that blunt tool all the time of saying everybody must lock down, nobody can gather, nobody should go visit anybody because some are irresponsible. Let us hope that we can all try and get through to the some who are still not yet on board and get them on board as to how we can all live together with the threat of COVID-19. And that's what I truly hope we can accomplish over this Christmas. Having said that, I know you do, and some of us out there do recognize that it may be inevitable for those restrictions to come. But I would like to delay those restrictions as much as possible so that we can spread the love, not COVID-19, but love and joy of this season. We've had a difficult year and a half. And those of us who have taken the necessary steps deserve, as we all do, deserve to share the Christmas spirit, even though we recognize that while we're sharing that Christmas spirit, COVID-19 is around us sharing itself. But we can take these steps.
Well, I certainly hope that at the end of the day, Mr. Minister, we will stick to the side of caution, rather be safe rather than sorry. I'm going to give you 30 seconds. So possibly, I'm sure you'd want to extend some early advanced Christmas greetings to the general public. And
let me start by saying that as finished as I started to say, look, testing. We will have testing centers outside of the Esplanade Mall, outside of the Grand Anse Mall, Spiceland Mall. We will have at all of our health centers throughout the various parishes. So in St. Mark's, Guelph Polyclinic will deal with St. John, St. Mark's. We have Sates, and we have St. Andrews and St. David's as well. For testing. Please come out and get tested. I encourage any of the promoters who are having events or so, get in touch with us. We'll have somebody come there as best as possible to do testing for your patrons there. Let us make that part of how we go about Christmas. That's how we're going to be able to be as close to normal as possible for Christmas, but keep control of this Omicron threat and COVID-19. Having said that, I want to offer the season greetings to everybody. May we always recognize the reason we have a lot to give thanks for. Life and health, we have all paid a significant price this year. We've all made sacrifices. We've all made sacrifices to get to here. We all are battle weary. We all need to appreciate the fact, those of us who have loved ones, that we still have our loved ones with us. Those of us who regrettably who have lost our loved ones in recent times need to give thanks and praise for knowing them, need to give thanks and praise for those that we still have with us. Let us make this Christmas a very meaningful Christmas. Let us make this Christmas not a regrettable Christmas. Let us make this Christmas one that recognizes COVID-19 exists, but so too is our need to celebrate the birth of Christ and the friendship and family that we do have. And we can do both. We can have both with testing and vaccination, but testing first right now, because that is how we can deal with this situation. So a Merry Christmas to everybody. May you have a safe and happy Christmas. Do not go into excess, but if you do, please test before and after.
Thank you, Minister Steele, and certainly allow me to enjoy advance season's greetings to you, your Ministry of Health team, frontline workers, and yourself and your family. All the best. I look forward to the continued collaboration in the new year.
Merry Christmas.
8 minutes gone past the hour. We went over time, but certainly as you can well appreciate, indeed, folks. As we get into the holiday season, which we've been informed, we have 12 new cases, 3 local and 9 is travel related. We certainly will continue to depend on the Ministry of Health to provide us with reliable, on-time information that as we can ascertain exactly how we navigate our way through and out of this pandemic. Until then, folks, as you go into the holiday season, continue to be safe. And that's all I can admonish you. Sanitize, social distancing, follow the protocol, wear the mask. Happy holidays and be safe. Thanks to everyone that's been part of this conversation, and those of you that is online, our online family, those of you that is on WhatsApp. So long, everybody. JC loves you. Have a great one.